Hello, everybody. Welcome to the workshop on the Satir Change process. My name is Darya Haitoglou. I'm a psychologist and a director of Virginia Satir Institute in the UK, London. And I'm going to be sharing this document with you that I created a few years back for an application of the Satir model for business and corporate coaching. But I think it's going to be very useful for us to look at the change process visually, as well as some of the examples that I will bring from my own life. So why Satir change process, and who is Satir? Well, let's look at that first. So for those of you who don't know Virginia Satir, she is internationally recognized psychologist, therapist, counselor. You can call her now. At that time, she was the first woman in systemic family therapy field. And her approach to family therapy was quite pioneering at that time. She created a process called family reconstruction that also inspired Bert Hellinger to create family and business constellation work, now widely known to coaches and therapists around the world. One of Satir's most novel ideas at that time was that the presenting issue or surface problem itself was seldom the real problem, meaning that when we say, oh, my problem is this, it's actually rarely the real problem. The real problem often is a hidden one. It's a very interesting exploration, but also an insight. You know, when I work with clients and they come with the so quote unquote problem, I always dig deeper to understand what is actually going on. What is the real problem? Because maybe they just bring something up that they feel comfortable with, but they're not bringing something up that maybe is not spoken, okay, but you can feel. So how people coped with the issue created the problem, and that's a very interesting lens. The issue is never the issue, it's the coping that makes it so. Satir also offered insights into the particular problems that low self-esteem could cause in relationships, both in private life and at work. Actually, Virginia Satir was all about helping people raise their self-esteem. And she believed that all people's problems come from low self-esteem. When we don't feel good enough, worthy enough, able enough, capable enough. And out of that lack, out of that unworthiness, we often make choices and behavior that is not congruent, that is not functional, and that is not an actual problem, but the problem is low self-esteem. You see the connection. So that can be applied also to any dysfunctional behavior like addiction or real problems, but these are the consequences or the symptoms. The actual problem is deeper. Moreover, helping issues with leadership, teamwork, motivation, executive charisma, and presence stem as a result of her work. In the mid-70s, her work was extensively studied by the co-founders of NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, Richard Bandler and John Grinder. I worked and studied with both of them, so I know NLP, and also that's how I got to know Virginia's work from the Neuro-Linguistic Programming. Virginia Satir is very well known in the field of business coaching, but also therapy, because of her change process model, which is a psychological model developed through clinical studies. And change management and organizational gurus of the 90s and 2000s embraced this model to define how change impacts organizations. And if you think of families and businesses or organizations, we are all systems. We all come from systems. So this change model can give us an insight into what's happening in our systems that we come from. So let's look into that. Change and improvement are always possible. That's a very important belief and principle that is the change model is based on. It's the good news, but also the bad news, right? So we always change, and through change we thrive, but also what doesn't kill us makes us stronger. It can be very challenging. The underlying principle that the model is based on is change can be done at any moment in time. So even when it seems like impossibility, on an impossible action, impossible circumstance, impossible event, change is always possible. And it's the only certain thing that we have, that it's going to be uncertain through the change process. The Satir change model consists of 5 stages. Here I drew them into shapes and colors differently. So you can see the first, status quo is the first stage, resistance, chaos, integration, and new status quo. It describes the effects of each stage on feeling, thinking, performance, and physiology. So that's very important. It's not just we're talking about the change and, we need to be adaptable or flexible, like Darwin, wrote. So the survival of the fittest, which means survival of the most flexible ones. This change model gives us an insight into what we need to do. And if we apply the iceberg model of the Satir, also created the iceberg model, which is the behavior is just the surface, right? The behavior is above the water. What we see, what we hear, what we experience, okay, with our senses. But there's so much more underneath the waterline that's happening. There's this whole notion of the feelings about the feelings. Virginia was one of the first ones who introduced this concept when she asked, so what are you actually feeling about that feeling? When you feel angry, how do you feel about feeling angry? Or when you feel sad, how do you feel about feeling sad? It's a very, very good question. Then there's also a piece of meaning making or expectations. So the fact can be the same fact, but 2 different people might experience them differently because the meaning they make about that event can be completely different. So, for example, a person sends a note to an employer, and the current employer looks at it and they start feeling angry that their employee is applying to another job, potentially, that the meaning that they're making. Another person seeing that note might think maybe that employee is looking after their family member to find the job for them, not for herself. So thinking, and changing that perspective, the meaning affects how we feel, how we think, how we behave. And the meaning we make comes from our beliefs, and the beliefs come from our rooted yearnings, longings, and the self, the bottom sort of part of the iceberg. These are the patterns we come from, families, and the systemic big sort of boulders. These are the rules of our systems, of our cultures, of our families, organizations we come from. So all of that can be looked at for each stage of the change model. The impact of a change process on performance for a well-established team or individual. So that's the figure 1, as you see. Let's look into the stages. So stage 1, status quo, or the old status quo. Don't rock the boat is the motto of the old status quo. Consistency, familiarity, perceived stability. Stable relationships give a sense of belonging and identity. People know what to expect, how to react, and how to behave. Implicit and explicit rules underlie behavior. People attach survival value to the rules, even if they are harmful. Often we see that in organizations and families because of this sort of disorganized attachment. It could be that the parent was abusive or neglecting, but as a child, we are dependent on our caregivers. So we attach to them as much as we can, and our survival depends on them. So the rules of the game. We learn very fast as children, and they may be very dysfunctional. So there's always a time to change. There's always a time to move towards healthier, less harmful, more helping, more healthy, more well-being. That's the good news. Okay, so often poor communication, negative feelings become a new norm when an organizational system becomes unbalanced. Members use blaming, placating, and other incongruent communication styles to cope with feelings like anger and frustration. The coping stances, again, their creation of Virginia Satir and the part of the Satir model, she talked about 4 coping stances: blaming, placating, super reasonable, and irrelevant. And Sharon Lerschen, her student and the ex-president, former president of Virginia Satir Network, International Network of Virginia Satir, added a 5th one, withdrawing. So all these coping mechanisms are just the surface, right? So we want to know what happens underneath and looking at the change kind of below the waterline. Stress may lead to physical symptoms such as headaches and gastrointestinal pain that create an unexplainable increase in absenteeism. So in companies and organizations, when people are missing a lot because of their illness, the issues need to be looked at, not just because, there's cold and flus out there flying around, but actually what's going on with the system, what's going on with the organization, how balanced, how caring, how nurturing, how sustainable is it, or is it not? Other issues could be emotional and mental burnout, depression, lack of focus. So these are, again, the symptoms. Also for children, when we see symptoms of behavior, I prefer to follow the Satir Change model and not look at just the symptoms and fix them, but actually dig deeper, understand, and get in contact with that side that is hidden, and they may lead to your own discoveries and your own behavior insights, and maybe some of the patterns that travel through your own generations. That is the most interesting piece of work you can do for yourself. So moving into stage 2. And of course, there's always in the change process a bit of resistance. Some people have a lot of resistance, some people have a little bit, but it always is present. We cannot go through a change, and change can be big or small, it doesn't matter, but there's always a bit of resistance going on, and that's good, because resistance is a sign that it's almost like a threshold or like a filter. It wants to make sure that the change is for the better, change is for good, for the good things, not for the bad things. And it's a really good milestone. When a person or a team of people reach the wall of problems or a foreign element emerges, this change element rocks the boat, but encounters resistance from the rest of the team. Most people deny the issue. That's the classic being in denial stage. The change element is perceived negatively and is often regarded as threatening and not appropriate for the team. These blocking tactics are accompanied by unconscious physical responses such as frowning and closed posture. Resistance clogs awareness and conceals the desires highlighted by the change element. Members in this stage need help opening up, becoming aware, and being conscious of their reactions. This will help overcoming the reaction to deny, avoid, or blame. It's a very important part. But also, we need to talk about the change element, which happens for different reasons. It can be, an illness, it can be frustration, can be somebody gets fired or hired, somebody dies or is born. The change element can be anything, but often is not very welcoming or very easy little thing. You know, it could be somebody announces a divorce, or somebody announces something happens that's so unexpected that this change element sort of rocks the boat, and that's when the resistance happens. Then we move into the stage 3, chaos. The person or a group enter the unknown. Relationships are under threat. Old expectations may no longer be valid. Old reactions may cease to be effective. And old behaviors may not be possible. The loss of belonging and identity triggers anxiousness and vulnerability. On occasion, these feelings may set off nervous disorders such as shaking, dizziness, tics, and rashes. I'm trying to move this. Members may behave uncharacteristically as they revert to childhood survival rules. And survival rules could be linked to 5 freedoms, another tool that Virginia talked about. The survival rules could be, you know, don't say the truth, or don't see what's happening, don't say what's happening, don't take risks, all sorts of rules that are dysfunctional, but they were needed in order to survive, and the child accepted those rules, but they may not be valid any longer, and it's an invitation to change them. Managers of groups experiencing chaos should plan for group performance to plummet during this stage. Everybody who experiences chaos knows that it's not a very effective, productive time. A lot of the time is wasted in conflicts and in sort of changing decisions and making revisions, and all of the energy, you know, bubbling and going up and down, and very hard to make a point or to be productive, to be effective at work. Until the members accept the foreign element, members form only half-hearted relationships with each other. Chaos is the period of erratic performance that mirrors the search for a beneficial relationship to the foreign element. All members in this stage need help focusing on their feelings, acknowledging their fear, and using their support systems. Management needs special help. Where is it? Management needs special help avoiding any attempt to short-circuit the stage with magical solutions. The chaos stage is vital to the transformation process. That's very important. Actually, chaos is one of the most creative processes, because, you know, artists know without chaos, there's no art. You know, this is the part when and time when our left hemisphere is connected to the right, where it's a lot of bridges been broken, created, reshaped, reformed. And every time, even a small change, you know, we go to a supermarket and the aisles have been changed, or they're different positioning of products, and we're like, oh, you know, where am I? Where? How do I find what I need? Where to go? There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of resistance. But then the chaos stage, right? Like, oh, what do I do? This time wasted, running around, trying to find things, feeling frustrated, feeling angry, feeling, you know, all these negative feelings. Part of the chaos stage. But it's impossible to go into a new status quo and to create something better. Everything goes through this, you know. Nature is, the change never happens so smoothly. Change means dying and birthing. Change, is it easy for the plant to be born from a seed, go through all this painstaking process of being birthed, you know, through the soil, right? If you want muscles to grow, the muscles need to break first in order to grow. In our body, it's not possible to grow muscles without stretching them, right? The same for animal kingdom. In order for a crab to grow, the shell does not grow. They need to go under the rock, you know, shred the shell, painfully, vulnerably, being sort of jelly-like kind of stage, and then wait while the new shell grows, the bigger one. Okay, so during that stage, during the chaos stage, we are all vulnerable. And how do we go into this radical vulnerability? And Brené Brown talks a lot about it, and learn from our change processes and from the past. Every one of us has a bright spot of change that happened in our past that we survived, but also we thrived through. And that's a beacon of light through the chaos stage. We should always remember that model, that change process that allowed us to go through the chaos, to go through the difficult bits, and made our life better. Because, okay, you may value change, you may not value change, you may be driven by a value of stability, and that means change might be seen as a dangerous zone. It may be that you are driven by harmony and love and affection, so change might mean a risk of losing that love and connection. I understand that, but it's part of an integral part of our process of becoming better beings, better humans, creating a better world, and learning to stretch our muscles, be them emotional or mental muscles, like physical muscles. It's part of the growing, part of our process. So after chaos, after some time, the good news, we go into stage 4 and we integrate. Okay, it's a phase of integration. The person or members of the group discover a transforming idea that shows how the foreign element can benefit them. It becomes exciting rather than threatening or scary. New relationships emerge that offer the opportunity for identity and belonging. With practice, performance improves rapidly. Awareness of new possibilities enables authorship of new rules that build functional reactions, expectations, and behaviors. Members may feel euphoric and invincible, as the transforming idea may be so powerful that it becomes a panacea. Members in the stage need more support than might be first thought. They can become frustrated when things fail to work perfectly the first time. Although members feel good, they are also afraid that any transformation might mysteriously evaporate, disconnecting them from their new relationships and plunging them back into chaos. The members need reassurance and help finding new methods for coping with difficulties. Okay, so that is an integration, both in organizations and in families. Integration takes love, care, attention, and time to happen. And some people get stuck in chaos and they may live the whole life in this dysfunctional, chaotic stage. But with the right support, with the right environment, with the right care, there is an integration. And finally, the stage 5, the new status quo. If the change is well conceived and assimilated, the group and its environment are in better accord and performance stabilizes at a higher level than in the old status quo. A healthy group is calm and alert. Members are centered with more erect posture and deeper breathing. They feel free to observe and communicate what is really happening. A sense of accomplishment and possibility permeates the atmosphere. In this stage, the members continue to need to feel safe so they can practice. Everyone, manager and members, needs to encourage each other to continue exploring the imbalances between the group and its environment so that there is less resistance to change. Okay. Now, how to help? I also wrote this as a helping brochure for those people who go through change process. And in each of the stages, let's look at what we can do for our system, especially if you are in organization or you have business and work with people. There are different activities you can do to help your coaching clients and teams going through change in each stage. Stage 1, status quo, help question the norm, help raise self-confidence, find their voice, flush out the negative feelings. Stage 2, resistance. At this stage, help observe inner feelings and acknowledge inner resistance. Mindful breathing, push through the fear, walk together with them through the fears, through the resistance. So I often ask the question, what's the worst that can happen? Tell me, what are you afraid of? What is your resistance about? And often, more often, they say, well, actually, it's not that scary. Okay, maybe I'm over-exaggerating. Maybe I'm catastrophizing. Maybe it's just based on my previous negative experience, blah, blah, blah. So the resistance might soften and allow the person with that question, what's the worst that can happen, to go deeper into their process of change. And welcome stage 3, chaos. Here, help is needed to validate them, to appreciate, to acknowledge it's a temporary stage, assist them in collecting the pieces of their puzzle. Often, chaos is so debilitating, so hard to go through. Nervous system is in chaos, dysfunctional. We all know how it feels to be under stress and anxiety or depression. So helping people to piece together that puzzle is the best thing we can do for them. Stage 4, integration. Help assist in synthesizing information, making decisions, following through, establishing new relationships. And finally, stage 5, new status quo. Help support them to feel safe to practice, because this is a change process. And the more you practice the new behavior, the new feeling, the new routine, the better it is. It's a muscle that needs to be trained. Okay, so what are the benefits? Here are some of the benefits and unique touch points of the Satir model of change when applied to business and corporate coaching. Transformational experiences that lead to sustained improvements, higher self-esteem, raised confidence, increased creativity, better relationships, improved productivity and effectiveness, increased work with passion, found voice to say your truth, sense of relief from childhood burdens, alignment of on different levels, work and home, the balancing act, improved leadership skills, enhanced communication, trained cognitive abilities, better performance, clarity of focus, enriched well-being, and deeper understanding of the self. So all of that are the benefits of going through the change. And as we go through the change, remembering the iceberg, checking in with our feelings, checking in with our belief systems, with our yearnings and longings. What do we want? What is driving our behavior? What is behind my problem? What is the real problem? What is my coping mechanism? How can I change that? So this is a little brochure that I wanted to share with you. You can also download it on virginiasatir.co.uk. It's our website of the Virginia Satir Institute in the UK. There are many free resources about the Satir and Virginia's model, including her way of communication, her way of supporting people who go in through the different stages, especially chaos. Chaos is the most difficult, but also the most potent stage for our evolution as humans and for raising our self-esteem. If we don't pay attention to people who are in chaos and we just blame them, or we just ignore them, or we label them with all sorts of mental health issues, and we do not help them, then they may get stuck in chaos. So as we reach out, offering help, and we are doing our inner work for our own self and for our own chaotic stages of processes, and we at any given moment in time, we're going through several change processes, some big, some small, but it's a never-ending process. So welcome to a new way of living. And like Vicky said at the beginning of the call, she likes ravens who find first of all, they adapt to very severe environments and low temperatures. And when they try to find food, they can even find nutrients in a pile of shit. So sometimes life throws shit at us. We don't know if it's chocolate or dirt. It may look similar, but it tastes definitely different. But at some point, we eat both of them in life. We cannot have a perfect, all balanced life. The best of us experience chaos. The best of us experience the shitty moments. And when that happens, always remember there is a light in the end of the tunnel, and integration is just one step away from raising up and saying the truth, changing that unhelpful, dysfunctional behavior pattern, and reaching out for help. As Virginia said, we are always better with support. So thank you, Second Opinion Society. Thank you, Vicky, for bringing us together and allowing this workshop to see the light. And hopefully, as you learn through your own experience, but also what you heard today about the Satir model, you become curious to learn more, to search more, and reach out for resources if you need any. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day, your week, your month, your year, your life. Take care.